I can't believe this is your first film, The Other Half. It's very masterfully done. The cinematography, the writing, the direction, everything.
Thank you.
Wow, I'm really impressed.
Thanks.
Who would you cite, what filmmakers would you cite as your inspirations?
Well, I think Steve McQueen's my favorite filmmaker right now, living or active. This didn't inspire me because I didn't see it before I made the movie, but I just saw Moonlight, and I think it's probably the most beautiful film I've ever seen in my life, actually. I know everyone gets excited about a new thing, but I've seen it twice, and it has everything I want in a movie. But for what we studied or what we watched, Lynn Ramsey's huge for me. Morven Callar, I think we just pretty egregiously stole some of the color palettes from the club scene in that movie, or the two club scenes in that movie. Martha, Marcy, May, and Marlene by Sean Durkin. I really love the Borderline guys, and I love Sean Durkin, and I love Southcliffe, which he made afterwards. That blows me away entirely. I don't think, like Steve McQueen, I think everything I'm just constantly like pillaging from, but Sean Durkin, we didn't really do this in the end in the movie, but for a while there was maybe the possibilities of flashbacks, and I'm so blown away with how he puts the past so very much in the present, and everyone else would just make it into a flashback, but he jams for all these characters that are so haunted, in both Martha, Marcy May, and Southcliffe, he jams just with very simple editing the past into the present tense in the movie, and it's a really beautiful way to create a haunted world for a character, and also it's a very sophisticated way, I think, to treat time in a movie. So even though we didn't end up using any of that, it really influenced me in the way I use sound, just the way sound would follow Nicky, or he would not be ready for something, because I felt somebody who's haunted, who's followed sounds from a scene before, certain sounds should follow him in. And then other sounds, he's never ready for what's coming because he's so trapped in the past, so certain things should come before he's ready. And then only when he's with her can he be in the present tense. So in the movie there's moments where it's just a long take and they're just there, and the sounds, everything's real, everything is in the present tense because they're together. When they're starting again in the second half, before they're really okay again, you hear the conversation before you really see it because they're still off balance, so we're off balance. And I was really always just trying to figure out how to put the audience in his shoes.
Well, also what it did for me is it illustrated the way our minds work.
Cool.
We're always in the past and present, you know.
Yeah.
Always. And it's just like that seamless back and forth with the sound carrying over or whatever, but it's the same image, same image. This is such a heartbreaking story. Why did you want to do this? I mean, that is tough stuff.
I don't know that I wanted to, and I guess truthfully, I would rather have no reason to tell this film, but it's a very personal movie. It's not autobiographical, but I did lose someone when I was really young who I loved more than anyone. And so it starts out, for me, it started out wanting to write about grief over time and do it in a way I felt was truthful, because all these tropes, especially in Hollywood, of time heals all wounds, is just not true. No. You live on, you survive, you find ways to, you know, I'm a very privileged person in the world. I'm very happy, I'm in love, I have a good family, I have a great family. You know, I'm a white person in a racist world. I'm a very lucky person. But privately, personally in my life, we all lost who knew this person, you know, the most wonderful person, and it shouldn't have happened. And so you kind of, I don't think it's an intellectual desire. I think it's an undeniable drive that just your body tells you you have to, it's time. And then little by little, the luxury of having years of working on it and not working on it and coming back to it and getting a tiny bit smarter, you know, getting a tiny bit better, is it just becomes what it has to be. So it wasn't a love story originally. Emily wasn't in the first iterations. And then Emily kind of came out of me, out of my own darkest days. I'm not bipolar, but I had a breakdown when I was about 17 that I think was a reaction to yes, exactly. And so it was never a strategy, and it was never like, oh, this would be interesting. And I don't think for my lifetime I'll ever be able to write from a point of view of like, this would be interesting, because I'm not a heady person that way. I'm a method actor. I was trained as a method actor, and I do lead, for better for worse, from here, you know, and that's why.
Wow, that is very articulate. Thank you.
Oh.
And these two, of course, they've got tremendous chemistry. She's bipolar, he's in grief, and they're together, and it's bleak at times, really bleak. And you kind of know that it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
So what is our takeaway?
Well, it's, many people have asked that, and I find it interesting. I can certainly see how there's like certain elements of the film where something's, left. I'm really interested in filmmaking where I leave you some space, I want film to be a bit closer to the experience of reading a book than sometimes it can be, and that's why I love the Dardenne brothers in their editing. I think that if you're specific enough about it, I can leave you a certain correct space to fill in a gap. But it's important that I'm specific about it, otherwise it's lazy. So I think with this, what I hope I've engendered is that he's not going to stop being a grieving man, because the person that's gone shouldn't be gone and left in a very terrible way, and that changes you forever. She's not going to stop being sick, because unfortunately it's such an extreme illness that there are variations of drug cocktails you can be on that can make it better, but it's a real battle.
And is she willing?
And also, and even when she is willing, it doesn't work, not to spoiler that either. But I guess to me, the simple thing about the ending is that he's still grieving and she's still sick, but they have each other. And time will not heal all wounds, but love is all we have. And it's not my favorite Beatles song, but I do believe in the, love is all you need trope. And I think it's true. And I think that, to me, I think the film's got, I certainly hope people experience it as having true hope, believable hope, real hope, because there are movies out there, certainly made in the Hollywood system, that trouble me because they purport to be about mental illness, but really they're using those tropes to sell a rom-com. And it's fine, just call it a rom-com, but don't give me a dance-off and tell me they're going to be okay if they're supposed to be sick. That ain't going to happen. And I felt it was very important to respect people that are actually bipolar, and to respect people like me who have lost somebody, and not me, I mean his parents, his brother, his sister, his life is gone. So if you're going to do it, you have to be true about it. And I think that what the film has is a realistic version of hope for people this beleaguered.
Well, and I'd like to add to that another thing is perseverance.
Yes, thank you, yes.
Like they don't have to stay together. She could just, anything could happen. She could go to a home. She could just be kept in this bubble at her house. He could go home to England or whatever.
Yeah.
They persevered.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful thing.
Thanks. Well, it's an interesting thing when you're that unwell, I think that we would say on set that they're two sick animals and they sniff each other out, and to the rest of the world they're these smelly, stinky, mangy mutts, but to each other they're stink don't stink. And that was something we talked about. And I think that in these situations in life, you can kind of suss each other out, and the illnesses kind of bring you together, because it's not tragedy snobbery, but you're the only other person that really gets what it's like to be here this way, and it does bring you together, but then it also wrenches you apart, because when you're both that unwell, having somebody else that is that unwell becomes unmanageable. So I was not interested, I know about that, that push and pull, because you do glom on and say like you're the only other, we're two aliens in a world, yes. But then it becomes impossible
on both of you.
Yes.
Anyway, but they carry on.
They do, and this perseverance, as you say.
Yeah. Now, also in real life, they are a couple, and they were a couple when you made that. And did you know, and how did you tap into that?
Well, by the time we were making the movie, we were all in the DP, Bobby, the four of us. Well, by the time we finished the movie, we were all very close. By the time we were making it, I was very close with Bobby, and I was very close with Tom and Tat. And then while we were making it, we all became very close. We all met through the movie, though. First time I had a drink with Bobby in LA, a friend of ours that connected us, we were talking about this. And I met Tat in an acting job, saw Grown Up Movie Star, offered it to her right away. Then we made my first short together. So she was attached for about 4.5 years, and then she started dating Tom, and I had a big crush on him from Weekend, which is one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite performances. So I started to write it for him, thinking that even if he didn't want to do it, I thought it was much stronger that Nicky was from another country, and that he'd left home, because originally it wasn't that, and that just kind of gave me a bit of a gift. Even if he wasn't going to do it, it just was so correct that Nicky fled. So I did show Tom eventually when I was ready, and he did want to do it. And so there was about 2 years from when Tom said yes, where we were just close as friends, and we wouldn't necessarily talk about it all the time. Maybe we barely talked about it, and sometimes we totally talked about it. But what it was I just got to know these amazing artists as people, and they happened to be as loving and lovely and kind as they are talented. So there was just a lot of love. And by the time we were going, I don't really feel like I ever pulled from their relationship. I certainly got to know them as humans. And there's certain little things she does I adore, and there's certain little things he does I adore. And so I don't even know if it made it into the page, but I just was aware of it.
Yeah.
And I was aware of they are two people that are so, they just give a lot of love to whatever they do. So once we were going, I never really had to worry about or ever think about, for all the concerns you have making your first film and not a lot of time, I never ever worried about, could they do it, and would there be that, you know, chemistry?
Well, yeah, there's plenty of chemistry, but there's no reason why you need to pull from their relationship, is there?
No, well, there's just, people have asked me that, like, you know, how much of it, and you know, there's no question.
They like toast, so we made them eat a lot of toast.
Yeah, no. Well, sorry, when I say relationship, I don't mean that I would pull from their relationship, but just pull from our relationship, the three of us, like knowing him, knowing her. I don't mean like they kiss a certain way and they'd be like, doobie-dee-doo. But no, I think it's, you know what, they were so generous with themselves as artists that I thought it was very important to protect them as people. And so none of their relationship, none of them is in the movie. They're characters, and I'm not Nikki and Emily as much as it started out being me, and they're not Nikki and Emily. They're just world-class artists who give everything. And you know, again, like, I'm trained a certain way. We used to say at theater school, you bring yourself to the party. There's a lot, there can't not be a lot of them in it, but from the way, you know, they move to the intonations, and this is kind of an insane thing about talent, like, they're very different than these people. They just happen to be world-class actors.
You know what? And you look at them performing, and him in his still shots, and her doing anything. It's just so thorough, isn't it?
Thanks.
They're right in it.
Yeah, and you know, to take that a bit further, Tom was on a TV show when we were doing this in the UK, and they gave him all his breaks at once. So he had a 20-day break. 2 days were travel, 2 off days, so we shot 16 days. He went from doing a completely different thing as a TV show to coming in and doing this. He landed on the first, we did wardrobe and a reading on the second, we were shooting by the third, and she is, you know, the world's busiest actress. And then they both just flew in and found each other. And it's interesting to hear them talk about it because, you know, there's nowhere to hide because they know each other so well. So they had, I mean, as actors are always giving it completely, but I think even more so, there was no little, she talked about this in interviews, there's no tricks to fall back on because he would call her out on it, and same for him. So it was like a beautiful dance that happens. And then Bobby, our DP, she's just a very collaborative DP, so it was like, it'll never be this good again.
Well, I thought it was great. I saw pictures of the four of you on stage. That's great that he's got his DP up there. Really.
Well,
it's so meaningful, and they don't get the kudos that they deserve.
You know, like, obviously a lot of people want to talk about Tatiana Maslany because she's Tatiana Maslany, and I get it. And then a lot of people want to talk about Tom Cullen, depending, you know, what city you know, what point of view. Well, you know, if it's more of a European background, you know, he's more known there, she's more known here. But all I mean is that it's tough to talk about any of them without talking about the three of them, because it was such a dance. And you know, I think they would all say this too, but you can't really talk about Tat's performance without talking about Tom and Bobby, because, and obviously me too, you know, I was there as well, but just the four of us, the way the four of us collaborated, we all really...
Organic body.
Yeah, and that's, I've talked about this a lot in interviews, but I played team sports growing up, not in a super competitive way, but I just played them, and I love them, and I like being part of a whole. Maybe you don't score the goal, maybe you make the first pass, maybe you make the last pass, maybe you do everything in that one play. But what I really enjoyed about filmmaking, as opposed to acting, and what I have to admit I'm more addicted to in filmmaking than I am in acting at this point, is just, it is your thing, and you start it, but then all these amazing people come in. I guess it's, you know, not as important as having a child, but the analogy people people use, I get it, because you have this child of yours, and then when it has to go off to school, you can't be the teacher. You have to let the teacher be the teacher. You have to let the doctor be the doctor. But you know when that doctor's bad, and you know when that teacher's bad, and you know when you have to take back your baby, and you know when you have to just say to the doctor, just a bit over here, please. And I love that, because they are insane. They are three of the most insane artists on the planet. Like, what Bobby helped me do with my first film, I can't put it into words. And what they helped me do with my first film, I can't put it into words. And I can't even begin to talk about all the footage no one's ever seen of what those three did, you know? And
on the DVD.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully the Blu-ray. For sure. But, you know, in terms of Bobby's being on stage, I couldn't imagine him not being on stage.
That makes such sense.
Yeah.
You know, and what you've done here too is it's so Toronto. Thrilled me to pieces to see all these parts of Toronto that I know, or I may not know that street, but I sure know the area.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I was in love with it.
Great.
It was so cool. And again, you know, as they always say up here, not trying to look like something else.
Oh gosh, you know, yeah. I mean, listen, I have to admit, I didn't want to put the CN Tower in. That was the one thing I didn't want to do that. But you know, number one, I love this city. I'm from Montreal, and I'm a Montrealer. But this city has been so good to me.
Montreal artists always treat Toronto well, like Denis Villeneuve and
yeah. I loved his Toronto and Enemy. Yeah. Oh my God, I loved his Toronto and Enemy. Well, I think I think that we shot it here because we live here. We all have nice lives here. Not Tom, but Tom spends a lot of time here because Tat lives here, and Tat lives here, and Bobby lives here. And we know the city. We know the parts of the city that we love, and we were fortunate that we were able to shoot it the way we wanted to, you know. And I think that what's so important about Toronto to me in this film is it's a huge city. And I think that, unfortunately, a boy goes missing in a huge city. Not that it, you know, in this movie it takes place in the UK, but Nicky goes to a different country. He crosses the ocean, but he's still in this haunted space. And it was a city that could be both beautiful but haunted. And from the clubs to what we did, you know, in the outdoors, I felt like the city had all the ingredients I needed to create a space that he could fall in love in, but he was also followed in, you know, haunted in. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a very romantic experience making it here.
I gotta tell you, super film. What a great job. Did you read Justin Chang's review?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Oh man, I don't think I was that, thank you, yeah. I think I was a bit of a butt to my girlfriend that day because I was so nervous.
The only